Story 1. The whisper inside my cap. I guess I should have felt proud. Everyone else was smiling, clapping, taking pictures. But I was just trying not to fall apart. My palms were damp. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the names being called. I kept wiping at my face, half from the heat, half because I didn't want anyone to see the tears sneaking out. The auditorium smelled like sweat and plastic chairs. That suffocating kind of summer air where nothing feels clean. I shifted my weight, adjusting the stiff fabric of my gown, trying to focus. Just hold it together until it's over. That's all. Then it happened. At first it was subtle. A tug, a tiny weight shift on my head, right where the cap rested. I figured it was the tassel dash, maybe caught in a fold or tangled in my hair. But then something slid. It brushed against the shell of my ear, a soft, dragging texture. Not rough like paper, but not fabric either. Like someone's breath, caught between words. That's the only way I can describe it. A whisper, but physical. Instinctively, I reached up and pinched the edge of my cap, fingers trembling. Something was inside. Something thin, folded. Definitely not part of the cap. I slipped it free, unfolding it just enough to see jagged pen marks cutting across the crease. My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly dropped it. The handwriting, it wasn't familiar. Sharp. Pressed too hard, like whoever wrote it was either furious or terrified. It read, "The footprints never melted. You left them there, I saw." My mouth went dry instantly. My skin turned cold despite the heat pressing in from all sides. I looked around rows of families, friends, classmates, smiling, laughing, completely unaware. I read it again and again. The words didn't change. The footprints never melted. Last winter. That night. No. There's no way anyone could have known about that. About what happened behind the faculty parking lot. About the snow. About the way I tried to cover it up. I remember standing there for hours, my footprints pacing back and forth until I was sure no one would figure it out. But the footprints, they did melt, didn't they? The snow was thin. It was raining by morning. I remember telling myself that, convincing myself. My fingers cramped from how tight I was holding the note. I wanted to rip it, burn it, swallow it. Anything to make it disappear. But then another sensation. The faintest tap, right against the top of my skull. Not a breeze, not the tassel. A tap, then a press, like weight shifting. I jerked the cap off, nearly knocking it to the floor. There was nothing. Nothing inside, no seam torn, no hidden pocket. Just that cap. I checked the note again, expecting no, hoping it would be gone, but it wasn't. The next name was called. Applause. A blur of clapping hands. Cameras flashing. Everything felt suddenly too bright, too loud. My chest squeezed tight like the air itself had thickened. I scanned the crowd, desperate. Faces blended together, except for one. A figure, far back, standing, not sitting. Perfectly still while everyone else was moving. No phone, no clapping, just watching. I blinked, and they were gone. The name on stage echoed through the speakers. It was my name. I stepped forward, knees locking, breath shallow. The cap trembled in my hand. I put it back on because what else could I do? Pretend none of this was happening. Pretend the weight of that whisper wasn't still pressing against my scalp. The rest of the ceremony was a blur. Applause, smiles, pictures I won't ever look at again. When I got home, I checked the cap again. Nothing. Not even a trace of where the note could have come from. Except when I opened my closet to hang up the gown, something caught my eye. On the inside of the door, 4 faint marks, parallel, about the width of fingertips. dragged down like someone's hand, or something had pressed there. I don't know what scares me more, the fact that someone knows what happened that night, or the possibility that it was never someone. If anyone's ever found something inside their graduation cap, something that shouldn't be there, please let me know. I don't think this was meant just for me. Story 2. The note didn't have ink. I don't even know where to begin. But maybe it starts with that moment when the principal said my name over the loudspeaker in the gym. The sound of it echoed off the walls, sharp and hollow. Everyone clapped, but it all felt distant, like I wasn't really standing there at my own graduation. As I stood to adjust my cap, I felt this slight pressure, not painful, but definitely there, like something soft pressing against the side of my head, under the fabric. At first, I thought it was just the bobby pins or maybe the tassel getting caught. But when my fingers brushed the inside, something shifted. Something papery. I pulled it out, slow, careful. It was damp. The kind of damp that doesn't make sense, not sweaty. More like cold. Like it had been somewhere it shouldn't have been. My hands shook as I unfolded it. There was no ink, no words. Just faint indentations, almost like the ghost of handwriting. Like someone had whispered into the paper instead of writing on it. I glanced around. Everyone was still clapping, smiling, recording videos. Nobody else noticed. Or maybe they were pretending not to. For a second, I wondered if it was some prank. Maybe someone slipped it into my cap as a joke, but then the paper got warm. Not gradually, instantly. The kind of warmth that feels intentional, like the residual heat of someone's palm. Except, whose? My stomach tightened. I tried convincing myself it was just nerves, but the sensation didn't go away. The paper pulsed once, almost like a heartbeat. I swear I felt that. A single deliberate thump against my skin. I shoved it into my pocket and tried to focus, but something was wrong. When I sat back down, my seat felt colder than it should have been. The plastic chair, almost damp beneath me. I shifted, wiping my palms against my gown. The air around me suddenly felt heavier, like the silence between the claps was pressing against my ears. When I finally walked the stage, I avoided looking directly at the crowd, but I caught something in the corner of my eye, not someone. Not really, more like a shape. Where the auditorium doors were cracked open, there was this gap, and within that gap, just darkness, but it wasn't empty. I know that doesn't make sense, but the way the light bent around it, like something was standing there, exactly where no one should be. I told myself to stop, to breathe. I smiled for the photo, shook hands, walked back down the steps, all routine, all normal. But as I stepped off the stage, I instinctively reached for the note again. It was dry now, ice cold, but the impressions were deeper, like whoever, whatever, had pressed harder this time. My fingers traced the grooves. I could almost write them. Not words, not letters. More like patterns, curves, lines that suggested a message, but not one I was meant to understand. Not yet. The rest of the ceremony was a blur. People cheered, threw their caps, hugged, but there was this constant pressure behind my eyes. It wasn't tears, not pride. It was something else. Like the edges of reality were just a little too thin all of a sudden. Like something was watching me from just behind the surface. When it was over, I slipped away before the photos. I told my parents I needed the bathroom, but I didn't go there. I went straight to my car, locked the doors, pulled the note out. Again, this time it wasn't blank, not entirely. Where before there had been only impressions, now there were stains, pale, faint, almost like fingerprints. 4 of them, perfectly spaced, smudged into the corner. Like someone had held it for too long, or like someone was still holding it when it ended up inside my cap. My hands trembled. I tilted the paper toward the sunlight, looking for anything that might make sense. And that's when I saw it. On the back, scratched in, almost invisible unless the light hit just right. A line, not written, etched, not yet. The paper was warm again, warmer than before, almost uncomfortable against my skin. I dropped it onto the passenger seat, but the warmth stayed, pressed against my palm like an afterimage. Then my phone vibrated. No call, no text, just ... A vibration, one long buzz, and then nothing. The screen stayed black. When I looked up, something flickered in my rearview mirror. A shape, just barely there, in the back seat. But when I turned around, nothing, no one. The note was cold. Again, completely cold, lifeless, as if none of it had happened. I drove home without music, without GPS, just ... silence, heavy, dense, the kind of silence that feels like someone is holding their breath. I still have the note. It's tucked inside a drawer, buried under old receipts and junk mail. But sometimes ... When the room gets quiet enough ... I swear I hear it. Not a sound, not exactly. More like pressure, like the air itself shifting. And sometimes it feels warm again. If anyone has ever experienced something like this, if you've ever found something that wasn't supposed to be there ... something that felt ... held ... please let me know. Because I'm starting to think ... this isn't over. Story 3. It knew where I sat. I hadn't really expected to feel anything during graduation. It was one of those ceremonies you show up for out of obligation, long, hot, tedious. You sit through endless names being read out, force a smile for photos, and try not to let your gown choke you when the wind catches it. But the second my cap hit the air with everyone else's, that's when everything shifted. I reached up, fingers grazing fabric, and caught it before it fell to the asphalt. Except this WASN single quotes T ... quite right. I could tell the moment my hand closed around it. Heavier, stiffer, something was inside. I flipped it over, expecting maybe some prank streamer, confetti, something dumb. But what fell out wasn't that. A single piece of folded paper. Thick, crisp edges, folded into a precise square, almost obsessively neat. The second I saw the handwriting on the outside, my chest tightened so suddenly it felt like my lungs just ... stopped. It was handwriting I hadn't seen in 2 years. But I knew it instantly. Sienna, she hadn't been here since sophomore year. She never made it past that. Everybody knew why, even though nobody talked about it. Not anymore. It was just one of those things the campus quietly buried. Under layers of forced normalcy, I stood there for a second. The crowd was still laughing, cheering, snapping selfies. All of it muffled, like I was underwater. My fingers unfolded the note. Just 7 words. Written small, but deliberate. Look behind row D now. For a second, I honestly debated crumpling it, dropping it, pretending I never saw it. But my eyes kept drifting toward the rows of seats, already half empty as people started piling. Out. I scanned until I found row D4th from the front, left side of the stage. There WS and single quotes T ... anything, at least not at first. But then I noticed it. One chair, out of alignment. Not much, just slightly skewed, legs crooked against the painted line of the court. A chill climbed up the inside of my spine. I told myself, you're being stupid. It's a prank. Someone knew you were friends. Someone's messing with you. But my legs were moving before my brain caught up. I walked, slowly, trying not to look like I was doing anything weird. Nobody noticed. Or if they did, they didn't care. As I got closer, I noticed something else. The chair wasn't just misaligned, the seat itself was dented, compressed, as if someone had been sitting there until just moments ago, except nobody was. I hesitated. Then, crouching down, I saw it, tucked beneath the seat. Another note, same handwriting. It knows where you sit. I swear my hands went cold, like ... actually cold. I felt the blood drain out of my face. My first instinct was to spin around, check if someone was watching me. Nothing. Just a sea of half-empty chairs. Families taking photos, caps littered on the floor. I stood, slowly, backed away from the chair like it was going to ... I don't even know. Do something. But then my phone vibrated. Just one buzz, a notification. I pulled it out. AirDrop request, no name, just an image preview. It was ... a photo of me, sitting, taken from behind. I spun around, breath catching, scanning the crowd. Nothing. Just faces, strangers, families, laughing, hugging, completely oblivious. My hands were shaking. I accepted the photo, opened it. It was ... earlier. Same chair, same gown, same everything. Only the angle. It wasn't from the crowd. It was ... higher, elevated. I looked up. Balcony seats, nobody. At least ... nobody I could see. A message followed, not via text, not via app. It just ... popped up. Full screen, black background, white letters. Not. There, look closer. I dropped the phone. I don't know why that was the breaking point. Maybe because it felt ... invasive, wrong. Like something was bypassing the normal rules of how the world is supposed to work. I crouched, snatched the phone up. The message was gone. Back to my home screen. No trace. No notification. Nothing. I told myself walk away. Just ... Walk away. Get to your car. Get out, but as soon as I turned, my foot kicked something. A third note, not folded, just lying there. As if it had been waiting. It said, you were supposed to be in that seat. I couldn't breathe. I actually couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed leave, now, but some awful part of me ... Some curious, self-destructive instinct made me glance back at row D, the chair. It was ... empty, except it wasn't. The dent was deeper now. The legs ... splayed wider, like something heavy was sitting there, or pressing down, or ... waiting. I stepped back, and that's when I noticed the chair wasn't casting the right shadow. The sun was coming from the west. Every chair's shadow fell long, diagonal, stretching eastward, except that one. The shadow ... was upright. Directly beneath it, heavy, dense, too dark, like it wasn't just a shadow, like it was something. I walked faster, nearly tripping. I didn't care. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely pull my car keys from my pocket. I glanced back one last time. The chair was turned, facing me. I swear to God, it was facing me. I drove. I don't remember the streets. I don't remember the drive. Just ... Turning corners, red lights blurring, the dashboard shaking because my hands wouldn't stop trembling. When I got home, I locked the door, every lock, windows, curtains drawn. Sat on the couch, pulled out the cap. The one with the first note. I checked it, flipped it, shook it out. There was something stitched on the inside of the lining, faint, barely visible unless you were looking for it. 3 letters, D4S. I don't know what it means. I don't know why it's there. And the worst part, I still don't know who or what sent me those messages, but ... tonight ... just now. My phone buzzed. AirDrop request. no name, a preview. It's a photo of my couch, empty, taken from the hallway, outside my door. If anyone else has experienced something like this, please let me know. Am I going crazy? Story 4, my name wasn't written. I kept telling myself it was just a graduation ceremony, just a formality. The auditorium was packed, the low hum of voices bouncing off the high concrete walls. My gown itched against my skin, the synthetic fabric sticking to the back of my knees. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, blending with the occasional cough or nervous laugh from someone in the rows ahead. When the principal took the stage, her voice was already draining, monotone, rehearsed. She started listing the usual platitudes about perseverance, future, and legacy. My head tilted slightly forward, not quite asleep, but definitely not fully there. Then something shifted, not outside, not in the crowd, inside my cab. It was subtle, like the whisper of fabric brushing skin. I thought it might be a bobby pin coming loose, or maybe the tassel sliding. Instinctively, I slid my fingers under the rim. That's when I felt it. Cold, thin, smooth. Definitely not part of the cap. I pinched it between 2 fingers and pulled it out. A piece of paper folded twice. For a second, I expected some dumb prank, maybe kick me written. Messy pen. But when I unfolded it, there wasn't even a name. Just 6 words. You know why this is happening. No punctuation. No handwriting I recognized. My stomach dropped so hard, it felt like my body briefly forgot how to breathe. Because, yeah, I did. I scanned the rows ahead, the rows behind. Everyone was locked in that blank, polite stare, some zoned out, some scrolling on their phones under their programs. No one looking at me. No one acting like they just planted something. But my ears started ringing anyway, drowning out the speech entirely. For a moment, I told myself it was just a joke. Someone screwing around, maybe a classmate trying to spook me. But even as the thought formed, my fingers kept tracing the paper's edges, like feeling it would explain how it got there. It didn't. The memory snapped back sharper than I wanted that night. 6 months ago, the one we swore not to talk about. The one where ... where we left before anyone noticed. Where we pretended it didn't happen. I swallowed hard. Could someone else have found out? No, we covered everything. We made sure. A loud burst of applause jolted me back. Someone's name was just called. They stood, walked down the aisle, shook hands, smiled for photos. Totally normal. As if the world hadn't just tilted sideways for me. I looked down at the paper again. It hadn't changed, obviously. Still those 6 words. My palms felt damp now. The fabric of my gown clung tighter, suddenly suffocating. I shoved the note deep into my pocket, scanning the exits. My name wasn't far down the list. I could just get my diploma, walk off stage, and leave. But then another thought wormed in. What if walking away made it worse? What if that's what whoever did this wanted? The names kept rolling, each one like a countdown. Then, something else. A tap. Not on my shoulder, not on my chair. Under my chair, I froze. Didn't look down right away. Just listened. Another tap. Sharp, precise, like a knuckle hitting metal. I finally forced myself to glance. Nothing. Just the shadow where my legs were. But I noticed something else. A slip of white, barely poking out from the vent grate beneath my row. I shouldn't have, but I reached for it. My fingers trembled as I pulled it free. Another folded paper, this one, heavier, thicker. I opened it. It was a photo, grainy dark, but I recognized it instantly. It was the back entrance, the one behind the gym, the one from that night. In the corner, faint but unmistakable, was the time stamp. 2 days ago. No faces, no figures, just the door, wide open. I squeezed the paper so hard it crumpled. My heart pounded against my ribs, louder than the applause around me. I don't know how I stood when they called my name. I don't even remember walking to the stage, but I smiled. I shook hands. I posed, just like everyone else. When I sat back down, my seat felt colder, heavier, like someone else had occupied it while I was gone. I glanced sideways, but no one seemed out of place. No one even looked my way. The ceremony dragged on, but I wasn't listening anymore. I kept my hand in my pocket, fingers tracing the edges of that first note. No more taps came, no more photos. But every time the crowd cheered, every time someone laughed, it felt wrong. Like it was covering something, hiding something. When it was finally over and the crowd started filing out, I stood slowly, half, expecting someone to grab my arm, but no one did. No one even noticed me, except as I turned toward the exit, there was a figure standing just beyond the double doors, backlit, face impossible to make out, not moving, just watching. I didn't walk toward them. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't. I turned, shoved through the crowd, barely registering the hugs and cheers around me. I didn't stop until I was in my car, doors locked, hands shaking so badly I could barely put the keys in. The note is still in my pocket, both of them actually. I haven't told anyone. Not yet, but if anyone else has ever gotten something like this, or knows what I should do, please let me know, because I don't think this is over. Story 5. The sound came from paper. I've been trying to convince myself. This is just stress, nerves, a trick of my exhausted brain after months of pushing through finals, applications, and everything else that led me to this day. But the truth is, even now, every time I close my eyes, I can still hear it. That sound. The whisper that wasn't supposed to come from paper. The auditorium was packed. Hundreds of graduates sat side by side in identical gowns, caps tilted slightly forward. The room buzzed with restless murmurs, families shuffling in their seats, the occasional cough echoing too loud. The air smelled like polished wood, damp fabric, and something faintly metallic, like the scent you get when handling coins. I kept adjusting my cap. It felt heavier than it should. I told myself it was just the heat, the way it pressed awkwardly against my scalp. Beside me, Mia was scrolling through her phone, pretending not to be nervous. Ahead of us, the dean started his speech, voice bouncing awkwardly off the high ceilings. That's when I first heard it, a faint sound. Not quite a voice, not quite. A breeze, more like the sound of breath sliding between folded pages, a soft, rhythmic whisper. At first, I thought it was someone behind me. I half turned, expecting to catch someone murmuring under their breath, but everyone was focused forward. Staring at the stage, I ignored it, or tried to. The applause erupted as the dean concluded his speech. Everyone stood, clapping, cheering. And that's when the sound shifted. It wasn't around me, it was above me, specifically from my cap. My heart jolted. Instinctively, my hand shot up. My fingers brushed against the fabric and felt something small, thin, folded, tucked perfectly under the corner of the cap's inner seam. A piece of paper. It shouldn't have been there. I hadn't touched my cap since the morning when I left it on my desk. The paper felt wrong. The edges were frayed, like it had been folded and folded dozens of times, and it was damp, but not with sweat, not rain. The moisture felt colder, thinner, like the air right before a storm. As I unfolded it, the whisper grew louder. Not a voice, not words, just air moving, as if something was breathing through the fibers. My eyes scanned the note. Sloppy handwriting. Black ink slightly smeared like someone wrote it in a rush or with trembling hands. It started with, "I've tried warning the others." Then a pause, a smudge, like a finger dragged over wet ink. It knows when you notice it. My mouth went dry. I glanced sideways. Mia was cheering, oblivious. Everyone was. I kept reading. You'll feel it first, a pressure, like weight behind your spine. Almost immediately, I did. A sudden awareness. Something hovering behind me, not touching, just close enough that I could feel the absence of space. The whisper grew sharp, like the edge of breath against my ear. The note continued. Don't look. Don't turn around. Just wait until it's gone. My hands trembled. I pressed the paper flat against my knee, forcing myself to breathe. In, out, count, keep the rhythm, ignore it. Ignore the pressure, but it got worse. Something shifted. Behind me, a subtle scrape, not footsteps, something softer, like fabric dragging over fabric. Then warmth. No, not warmth, the opposite. A patch of cold air brushing the back of my neck, as if someone was leaning too close. Closer than anyone should be. I bit the inside of my cheek, hard. I wanted to turn. Every instinct screamed at me to check, to just glance. Just confirm that it was nothing, but the paper crinkled in my hand. The last line burned into my brain. If you turn, it stays. My fingers dug into my knees, nails pressing crescent, moons into the fabric of my gown. Seconds stretched. The names being called on stage blurred into background noise. Cheers became distant. I felt like I wasn't sitting in that chair anymore, like the world around me had thinned. Then a shift. The weight behind me lifted, not stepped away, not vanished. More like slid sideways. The air warmed fractionally. The whisper faded. I held my breath. Counted to 10, 20, nothing. Slowly, so slowly, I folded the paper back up, slipped it into my pocket. Didn't dare check if it was still damp. The ceremony went on. Mia nudged me when it was our rose turn to walk. My legs felt like rubber, but I stood, smiled for the photos, shook hands, pretended. Afterward, when the crowd thinned and families poured into the parking lot, I finally pulled the paper out again. It was gone, not blank, just gone. The paper itself wasn't there, only a faint imprint where it had pressed against the lining of my pocket. No one else mentioned anything. No one else seemed off, but that night, lying in bed. Lights. Off, I heard it again. Soft, breath sliding through folded paper. And it was coming from my nightstand drawer.